Have you ever had one of those moments, something happens and you think this changes everything, but, well, deep down, you're still you?
Exactly. That's really the starting point for the book we're looking at today. It dives into conviction, discipline, character, all through the lens of some pretty deep life experience.
And it's less about giving answers, right? More about provoking thought.
Precisely. The author hopes these reflections sort of nudge you, the listener, towards your own deeper thinking.
And speaking of reflection, we really want to point you towards our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments.
Oh, yeah.
It uses AI for book analysis, aiming to spark that kind of reflection and critical thinking. It fits perfectly with what we're exploring here.
It really does. So the book kicks off with this idea of a pivotal day, something that felt like it should be life-altering.
But wasn't in the end.
Well, not defining anyway. The realization was that your core identity, it kind of persists. It's already shaped by so many other things, values, experiences, maybe even limitations.
So the big moments don't necessarily rewrite us.
They might not redefine us, no. But they can be incredibly valuable triggers for self-reflection. They show you who you already are, in a way.
Right, like holding up a mirror during a dramatic event.
That's a good way to put it, and that leads straight into the importance of examination. The examined life.
Socrates?
Yes, but broadened out. It's not just looking inward, but consciously examining the world, deciding what you actually believe.
And the book makes a strong point about actions versus thoughts, doesn't it?
It really does. We can say we believe all sorts of things, but what do we consistently do? The book argues that's the truest reflection of character.
Actions speak louder. It's an old idea, but it sounds like it's explored with some fresh perspective here.
Definitely. And what I found quite poignant was the author reflecting on his own path, military service, things like that, and wishing he'd been more deliberate, more contemplative about his convictions earlier. Even if a path is well worn by others, it's brand new to the person walking it.
That really hits home. How often do we just move through things without that pause for deep reflection on our own beliefs?
Exactly. It's an encouragement to bring that mindful inquiry even to the familiar parts of life.
So how does one cultivate that? Does the book suggest looking to others?
It does. It talks about initially feeling maybe intimidated by great philosophers, but later appreciating their frameworks.
Not just quoting them, but using their ideas.
Right. Using their structures to understand things like virtue, character, justice. These thinkers grappled with the big question.
And they knew things weren't perfect, right? They saw the gap between the ideal and reality.
Absolutely. They were acutely aware of it. Their work often tries to bridge that gap to foster the best in us. It's timeless, really.
The book uses an example involving someone named Zarqawi.
Yes, and the author's commitment to fighting AQI. It's used to illustrate the sheer power of strong belief, even if, the basis for that belief is flawed or debatable.
Belief itself is a force.
A potent one. And that's contrasted with beliefs we often just inherit. Religion, maybe, or patriotism like duty, honor, country.
Things you might accept without deep initial thought.
Perhaps. But the book suggests genuine conviction comes later, through personal interpretation, through really grappling with it over time.
So finding conviction isn't some mystical quest.
Not at all. It's about identifying things you genuinely believe in, things that make you better, like being a steadfast friend, maintaining healthy habits, sticking to ethical principles.
Practical stuff, grounded stuff.
And also the big abstract stuff, wrestling with justice, mortality, and that sometimes uncomfortable look back, comparing who you are now to your past actions. Accountability.
That leads into another area, how perspective shifts. The book mentions fear.
Yeah, fear of the unknown. And how leaders can sometimes leverage that fear to create an us versus them mentality.
To unify against a perceived enemy.
Exactly. History is full of examples. The book mentions Germany in the 30s, Rwanda, Iraq more recently, demonizing the other.
That's a heavy point. Does it push that idea further?
It does, quite provocatively. It suggests trying to understand the perspective of, say, Confederate soldiers or even those involved in the January 6th Capitol attack.
Wow. Okay. How so?
By posing that if you had their exact same life journey, the same information, the same experiences, maybe you'd see things their way too.
That's challenging. It's not excusing actions, but trying to understand the mindset.
Precisely. How do you hold on to your own views while trying to grasp how someone else arrived at theirs? It requires real nuance.
Shifting gears a bit, what about community?
The book frames community as a very deliberate choice. It uses the author's own experience building connections in his neighborhood.
It takes effort then, not just proximity.
Real effort. Small talk, showing up for things, funerals, weddings, the inconvenient stuff sometimes. But that payoff is connection, support, real community.
Those small, consistent acts add up.
They absolutely do. Then there's the integration of work and life.
Yeah.
The military is used as an example again.
How so?
Well, in the military, it's often more than just a job, right? Your work life and personal life are deeply tangled. The book gives an example of supporting a soldier's family after a tragedy.
So not work-life balance exactly.
More like a yin and yang, as the book puts it, interconnected. Finding satisfaction across all parts of life is presented as a personal choice, and it comes with trade-offs.
Interesting. What about looking back at history? Does the book touch on specific events?
It uses Gettysburg as an example, not as a simple story, but as a complex place.
Multiple perspectives.
Yes. Lessons about courage, leadership, sacrifice, all set against this backdrop of pastoral beauty and, well, horrific violence. It avoids easy answers.
That complexity seems key. Does it apply that to modern challenges too, like leadership today?
Definitely. It talks about adapting leadership for the digital age, how communication has changed. What matters is what followers actually hear and process.
And it critiques some modern practices. Incentives, maybe?
Oh, yes. Especially overly complex corporate incentive systems. The argument is they can actually confuse things, undermine what you're trying to achieve.
Questioning if money is always the best motivator.
Exactly. Maybe simpler approaches, focusing on intangible things, could be more effective sometimes.
What about traditions? Are they always valuable?
It looks at military officers' clubs, the O Club, acknowledges the good informal networking, a controlled social space.
But also the downsides.
Yeah, potential for excessive drinking, misconduct, and context matters. The author closed alcohol-serving clubs in Afghanistan, different context, wartime, Islamic culture, so the value isn't always clear-cut.
Makes sense. Does the book delve into social issues, like civil rights?
It does, quite powerfully. Draws on the author's mother's involvement in the civil rights movement, his own experiences.
What's the take?
It echoes Tom Ricks's perspective that it was a bitter, demanding struggle needing constant pressure. It quotes Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail about the impatience of the oppressed.
And the difficulty of achieving real equality.
Right, because true equality often means those with privilege have to give some of it up. That's inherently difficult.
Division seems like a recurring theme.
Very much so. There is an anecdote about a dinner in Sarajevo trying to bridge deep divides. The book argues these differences, nationality, religion, culture, they are significant. They aren't just superficial.
Like the divisions before the American Civil War.
Exactly. It wasn't just politics or economics. It was emotional, cultural, deeply felt differences.
And what happens when people feel threatened?
The observation is a tendency to retreat, to revert to their own people. Tribalism, essentially.
Examples.
Non-slave owning Southerners fighting for the Confederacy. Soviets defending the homeland under Stalin, despite hating the regime. It highlights how easily communication breaks down between different groups, military versus political figures, for instance.
That leads to tough ethical questions, doesn't it? Ends versus means.
Absolutely. The book tackles that head-on, balancing the outcome you want with how you get there. It mentions debates about torture, the author justifying difficult past actions.
Like Truman's decision with the bomb. Or Sherman's march.
Yes, and even killing Sarkawi's followers. The point emphasized is the need for sacred standards, for constantly trying to align the means with the ends you truly believe in. It's a struggle.
What about corruption? Is that addressed?
Yes, and defined broadly. Not just theft, but leveraging your position for personal gain in subtler ways.
Like money in politics.
That's mentioned, yes. And the need for real accountability, stronger punishment for betraying public trust.
How does the Constitution fit into all this?
It's framed as a brilliant framework, but, well, not a guarantee. It's self-correcting, resilient.
But its success depends
On the players, the citizens. On character, on people acting responsibly. It can bend, thankfully, without breaking, but it relies on us.
The book also touches on war itself, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the strategic or ethical.
It does. It acknowledges the usual condemnation, the tragedy, but also the other side.
Which?
The incredible courage you see, the commitment, the simple purity of duty that can emerge in combat. It suggests we need to celebrate that best part, even while never forgetting the worst.
A difficult balance. Finally, does it offer thoughts on the state of things now, politically?
It highlights the danger of political dysfunction, the sheer importance of competent governance. And it warns against complacency, against thinking it can't happen here.
American exceptionalism isn't a shield.
Not necessarily. It briefly mentions potential ideas like stopping campaigning against colleagues, fighting disinformation, but acknowledges how hard those fixes would be to implement.
So wrapping it all up, it sounds like a journey through defining character.
It really is an ongoing one. Through conviction, through discipline, navigating a world that's, well, complex and often contradictory.
And if you want to keep exploring ideas like these, definitely check out our podcasts and also our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments.
Yeah, lots more thought-provoking analysis there. We really hope you'll subscribe to this podcast, maybe share this conversation if you found it worthwhile.
And if you want to read the book itself, we'll have a link available. But more than anything, we hope this discussion gets you thinking.
Thinking critically about your own convictions, how you see the world.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. What's one area in your own life where maybe, just maybe, a deeper reflection on your core beliefs could spark some really meaningful change?